All right, let's jump straight into this explainer of the totally unapologetic philosophy from a text called Iron Mirror by D. Now, listen, this is a text that completely strips away that standard feel-good advice we are all so used to hearing these days. Instead, it exposes what the author views as the raw, mechanical gears of discipline and self-mastery. We are not looking at a soothing self-help guide here, no way. We're exploring a manual that is explicitly designed to be cold and unforgiving.
Right off the bat, we're hit with this direct challenge from the text, basically throwing you right into the mirror. The source immediately establishes a core premise. Inspiration fades, but structural change requires mandatory confrontation. It points out that, honestly, most of us read things like this just to get a quick fire on our chest, only to put the book right back on a shelf the minute comfort returns. So this question forces you to decide right now, why are you actually here?
The source frames its entire approach as a cold reflection. It forces you to look at the exact, uncomfortable gap between who you are right now and who you know you could be. It argues that men actively avoid genuine self-examination simply because honesty threatens our comfort. You know how it goes. We compare ourselves to people doing worse just to feel a little bit better about ourselves. Well, this text absolutely refuses to let you look sideways.
Now, what's really interesting here is how the book reframes the very concept of weakness. Here's a surprising fact the text brings up. Human brains burn about 20% of our daily energy. So evolution literally wired us to avoid difficult, calorie-burning tasks. According to the author, you aren't inherently weak. Your brain is just being efficient. It categorizes difficulty as a threat to save energy. Because of this, you are just untrained in facing discomfort. And let's be real, the modern world allows us to be incredibly efficient at avoiding absolutely anything that might stretch us.
The author presents this as a massive, massive paradigm shift. It emphasizes that the difficulty you feel in your life isn't a red flag that you're on the wrong path and you need to quit. The difficulty actually is the path. The text makes it incredibly clear that untamed weakness is just untapped capacity, literally waiting for a single decision from you to wake it up.
So let's get into the breakdown, stripping away the illusions. To get to that raw potential we just talked about, the author argues we first have to dismantle the comfortable myths holding us back, and that starts with a silent destroyer known as avoidance. The text argues that avoidance is rarely some dramatic event. It usually slides into your life wearing the costume of reason. You've got the surface layer, the emails you delay or the gym sessions you skip, but then it goes deeper into identity avoidance, like staying in a career just because leaving means admitting you wasted years. And finally, existential avoidance, refusing to ask who you are actually becoming. Avoidance compounds exactly like financial interest. 10,000 small retreats from difficulty, which we often disguise as patience or perfectionism, quietly rot the structure of your life. And the book draws a really sharp distinction here between borrowed and real confidence. Borrowed confidence is conditional, right? It relies entirely on likes, compliments, and external status symbols. The exact second those external signals stop, the confidence vanishes into thin air. Real confidence, on the other hand, is described as the unbreakable residue of kept promises to yourself. It's built in those private, quiet moments when you do what you said you would do, especially when nobody else is watching.
Think about your own life for a second. The modern lie is that having zero structure and zero commitments makes you free. But the text argues that the guy with no discipline just wakes up whenever he feels like it and wonders why his life feels completely empty. He's effectively trapped in a cage called drift. True freedom, according to the author, is only accessible through strict discipline. Think about it. The man who controls his finances is free from debt. The man who controls his impulses is free from his own reactions.
Now, the text doesn't moralize here at all, but it neutrally points out how our most primal drives are essentially leveraged against us. Unchecked lust is described as a remote control in someone else's hands, used by advertisers and algorithms to totally hijack your dopamine. It fragments your focus, it corrupts your attention, and it substitutes difficult real-world achievement with counterfeit, cheap neurological hits. Basically, your brain gets tricked into feeling a reward without you actually building a single thing, which forces you to audit your relationships and your energy. Are you actually trying to be seen and to see another person, or are you just putting on a performance to get a quick hit of validation? The text warns that the man who needs to be desired just to feel worthy is auditing his relationships, not genuinely participating in them. And that leads directly into how the author completely redefines love. The author totally flips the script right here. Lust is defined strictly as what you can extract, pleasure, validation, proof that you're desirable. Love, in stark contrast, is entirely about what you can contribute. It's about presence, protection, and truth.
The text notes that a lot of men try to operate the architecture of love using the engine of lust, and that eventually, inevitably, collapses when reality actually hits.
Which brings us to the concept of unmasking the raw man.
Once you strip away all that avoidance and false freedom we covered, the author argues that what remains is a real individual standing in his own truth, completely free from the exhausting performance of pretending to be something he's not. The text outlines 4 specific pillars for this individual. First, he operates on a strict internal code. Second, he is accountable to his own standard, making him way harder on himself in private than he is in public. Third, he tells the brutal truth, which means his word is actually worth something. And fourth, he is fully present. Interestingly, the text emphasizes that being this raw man requires genuine vulnerability. It takes immense courage to drop that heavy shield of performed toughness, admit when you don't know something, and stand fully in reality.
We hit a major turning point here. The book makes it crystal clear that motivation is absolutely unreliable. Actually, scratch that. It's worse than unreliable. It's like unpredictable weather, fleeting and totally out of your control. If you rely on feeling inspired to do the hard things, you are going to fail. Instead, you need an architecture of iron systems that just run automatically, regardless of how you happen to feel on a random Tuesday morning.
So what is the solution? The text lays out what it calls the Iron Protocol.
This Iron Protocol is a literal blueprint of mandatory confrontation based on the author's philosophy. It is designed to restructure your nervous system over time so you become someone who runs toward hard things rather than away from them. You wake hard, no hitting snooze, you just stand up immediately. You hydrate in pure silence. You establish physical dominance, review your personal code, and tackle your deep work. And you do all of this before the world even knows you're awake. It's all about reclaiming that very first hour of your day before algorithms and outside demands can hijack your attention.
The whole foundation of this protocol is consistency over intensity. The text points out that a man who trains at 70% intensity every single day will drastically outperform the man who burns out at 100% 3 days a week. Avoiding 0 days is exponentially more powerful than occasional, massive spikes of effort. The goal isn't necessarily to have a great day every day. It's to have absolutely 0 bad days where these 5 non-negotiables are ignored.
This explainer leaves us with an incredibly immediate, concrete directive. The source notes that consuming information without acting on it, that just adds another layer of insight to a massive pile of things you already know but still don't do. To break that cycle today, literally within the next 24 hours, you must execute just one small private act of building that the old version of you would have avoided. Just one.
And so we conclude by turning the mirror firmly back onto you. We've stripped away the noise, we've stripped away the comforting lies. The entire architecture is laid out right in front of you. So the only real question left is this. Will you retreat back into the comfort of your illusions, or will you finally step into the friction required to become the person you are actually meant to be?